except my daughter and son-in-law are graduates of Creighton, so a little bit more connected there. So
I don't know if
welcome
you can be
all
a
of you.
Husker fan and a Creighton fan, Lori. I
I
just don't
can be.
know. I don't think so because I'm a Husker fan. I don't even know who this Creighton team you keep talking about. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yes, it is possible to be a Husker and a Blue Jay fan. So
Oh,
yeah, and a Kansas
So,
City Chief fan. So
Emily, you would have liked my T-shirt I had on Sunday. It says, "Where the hell is Texas A&M?" And so, but the kicker is I went to an A&M school down in Texas. And so I'm from Tarleton State University. And on the back, it says 176 miles to Tarleton. But I wore a hoodie and I just figured all my Nebraska people would be happy I had on a "Where the hell is Texas A&M?" So,
I appreciate that.
mhm.
yeah, like I said, had I not paid good money to Creighton for my daughter to go there, I probably wouldn't be as invested. But I did pay something for her to go there. So, but anyway, we have departed. We are speaking about NCAA tournament basketball games. If you're just joining us, Creighton is ahead, though it has not refreshed for a while. So, hopefully they win before we're done. So, we will begin here shortly. We have a great presentation for you today, and I don't want you to miss a minute of it. So we will get started here in just a couple minutes. I am looking for Will and Matt. If either
I'm
of you
here.
have joined us.
Will
Okay,
and Matt
and
are both here. Yeah.
all right,
They're there.
perfect. Just kind of
Yeah.
snuck in on us ever so sleuthily, if I can
And I'm
say.
gonna provide a little play-by-play on the Creighton game because I have it on the TV right here. So Creighton's pulled
Oh,
away. Yeah, Creighton's kind of pulling away, so I feel pretty good that we might have one. So
okay.
yeah.
Well, Emily has announced that you can't be a Creighton and a Husker fan
Oh,
simultaneously.
What do you mean?
wow.
There's literally a name for it. What are you talking about?
J-Sker. Yes, a
Yeah.
J-Sker.
Easter?
Yeah.
Yeah,
J-Sker. Yeah. I kind of
yeah.
like it.
Well, I think, Matt, are you now questioning your relationship with Emily and Plattsmouth because of
It's
this? I
getting,
mean,
yeah, we're kind of, because I went to both schools. So what do I do here? I just felt like she shot us. That was a shot over the bow. Get
In
your own
comments,
football team. Someone just
yeah,
threw out. Did you see that? Get your own football.
yes, yes.
oh, Rick.
Get
Other
your own
than being a
football
native
team.
Nebraskan, I have no allegiance to Nebraska, but I do follow all of their sports and proudly claim I'm a Husker every time I'm out of state, but I invested no money at UNL, so children went elsewhere. So anyway, we will wait another minute here and then we will get started. So I continue to hear people joining us now that I have my earbud in. So we will, oh, Pat, thank you for letting us know you've joined us. It's a great presentation. We had a lot of fun as we did our practice session and a lot of great information is coming your way. So, yeah, and Rick is now acquiescing and admitting that Creighton has a great team. So that is probably a topic we should do more often is allegiance to universities and colleges in the state. So
I do have to say, although I went to an A&M school, I am not A&M loyal. Just for the record, Texas A&M is a bad name in my house.
well, and I have a niece who did graduate from A&M. So she stayed in Nebraska for a couple of years and then departed, but she is back. So, but
That's great.
so yeah. So, well, hey, it is about 2:01. I'd love to get started on our presentation for today. Welcome to the March HomeNE webinar. I'm Lori Ferguson with South Central Economic Development District. We are located in Holdridge, and we serve as the lead agent for the HomeNE learning network. It is a network that is designed for people from all across Nebraska. We even have people who join us from out of state. It's geared towards addressing and solving housing challenges in rural communities by providing face-to-face opportunities as well as online opportunities to get together and just discuss and have conversation and teaching around housing challenges and housing solutions. So just wanting to let you know, we are joined today by Emily Bausch, Will Major, and Matt Doherty. They're going to be talking about the incredible renovation of the original high school in Plattsmouth. You're in for a real treat when you see the befores and afters. And I first met Emily, we were talking earlier today about 9-10 years ago at an event, and she is a former Economic Development District consultant for another economic development district here in Nebraska. I enjoy her. She's wonderful, very supportive, and I just appreciate her being willing to present today. And she has invited Will and Matt to join us. And I'm going to hand it off to them and let Emily introduce herself as well as Will and Matt from RMDX Development. Did I get that right?
Yeah, it's fine. That's perfect.
Okay, perfect. So Emily, thank you again for being here with us today. And as I just mentioned, please introduce yourself to everyone as well as Will and Matt.
Awesome. Thanks, Lori. So I'm the city administrator here in Plattsmouth. I've been here for about 3 years now. And I joke that I kind of came in right at the best time because Matt had already bought the schoolhouse, a building, and had been working on quite a bit of financing and trying to get some things going when I got here. And Matt has amazing energy. So the project we'll get into in this talk, everything that worked and everything that we talked about on this project. Sherry, I'm not sure if it's going to let me advance slides. I did try and it's not going. So for those of you that aren't familiar with Plattsmouth, we're right outside of the Omaha metro area. We're in Cass County, we're the county seat. We have a beautiful historic Main Street. This is an old photo of Plattsmouth. You can see the courthouse and in kind of in the background, and the Platte and the Missouri rivers kind of hug us. So we're, have a really interesting landscape here. So this historic downtown is very, very important to us. We value kind of our history, and we're a certified local government and have invested quite a bit of energy and effort into our downtown, which I think is why the renovation project at the Schoolhouse Apartments, which is just, it actually sits on top of the hill looking down at Main Street. I think it's really iconic that we have managed to save that building and continue the legacy here. I think the mayor has classified the project as kind of like restoring the heartbeat of the community. The high school's been here since 1918. The building has existed and restoring its heartbeat, and it's just right on the edge of this downtown. Let's see if it's going to let me advance.
Oh, cool.
So Matt has a whole slew of photos, but so Plattsmouth, small town, just under 7,000 people here. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the different opportunities that the city partnered with. And then I'm going to have Matt Doherty and Will Majors, both of them are with RDMX, talk about the actual renovation, which I think is probably a lot more interesting than kind of the meats and potatoes of how we got there. But this has been one of the projects that the mayor and city council are most proud of, and I think really shows our ability to collaborate to tackle some housing needs. So the city of Plattsmouth does have a housing market study. It did identify that we're short on all kinds of housing units. So when this project was launched, it definitely fit a need, and I think it's what are the foundation steps that we went through to get this? I think some of it is, we had identified that we had some housing needs. I think the other part of it was we declared this building a local landmark and wanted to preserve it. So I think the city council had really affirmatively stated that this building in the form that it was in was important to keep, that we weren't only going to fix the housing need, but we also wanted to kind of preserve the legacy. Is it letting me, or are you still doing it, Sherry? See if, so this is, because I know a lot of people will keep these slides after the presentation. This was kind of a press release about the schoolhouse apartments renovation project, and I think it kind of highlights all of the players in the game, because I didn't want to leave anyone out. So it talks a little bit about the investment team, and then it talks about the architecture firm. We Matt and Ryan and Will had Allie Pointer, and Lund Ross was the contractor on the project. It talks a little bit about the units, 41 apartments, and there's two different buildings. There's an old building, which we'll focus on mostly today, but there's also a brand new building in the area as well. The project's called the Lofts on Main, and I think, I don't know how many times I toured the building before and during, but we also talked about it a lot with our political leaders, and Congressman Mike Flood has been a huge friend to this project. He came when it was under construction and also came to the ribbon cutting, and I think it's important that we share the success, and I was really happy that his office sent a number of folks to the ribbon cutting, and also had they followed up with us, and really have been happy to share in this successful project. So the schoolhouse building was vacant for 30 plus years. I think the last graduating class was like 1987 or something like that. So when we talk about saving this building, there were points in time that I actually thought that Matt was crazy and that there was no way that this was going to work. But
I've heard it more than once. I'm going to jump in on that. I've heard that more than one time.
All right, Sherry, go to the next one if it lets you.
Can you go? Yeah, I was going to say, can you show some of the slides of the before? There we go. Okay, there's Mike. There's Flood. Yeah.
So when we talk about the collaborative approach, this is actually Mike Flood and one of the site superintendents and the mayor. I think it was about 1,000 degrees that day. Neither one of them had their jackets on, but they both had jackets on before that. So when I talk about collaborative approach and Matt being crazy, it took a lot of different things to make this work. There was not just one solution and one thing that worked. So we are going to talk a little bit about historic tax credits, the low income housing tax credits, LB 840 sales tax for workforce housing. And then on this project, we also talked about PACE, which is property assessed clean energy, and tax increment financing. Again, we didn't use the last two, but I think it is important to know that pretty much anything and everything that was on the table was at least talked about or looked at for this project. And so I'll kind of compare and contrast what worked and what didn't, and why it worked and why we went with that. So and Matt can jump in here on historic tax credits, because I think the historic tax credits and the really preserving the historical significance of this building was really, really important to the entire project team.
Yeah. Yep.
And I kind of laughed when I was putting this together, because the minimum cost of the renovation's $5,000. I don't even know what your renovation budget was, but I think that was like one window for the project.
Yeah, the historic tax. In fact, let me jump in real quick on this piece, because we just had a state bill that was just they reenacted the state historic. There's two credits. You can get a federal historic tax credit, and then there's a state historic tax credit. And I really want to applaud our local legislature and all the legislatures that jumped in and got this bill passed to get the credits back for the state. This project probably would never have gotten done. In fact, I know it wouldn't without the historics on the federal and the state. So Emily, you make a great point. These historic tax credits were very, very important for a project of this size to have a chance.
So just a little snapshot about what historic tax credits are. Like I said, this was on the National Register of Historic Places. So it is a building that we wanted to save. And it really, when we get into the renovation of this building, it really was days away from complete devastation and being ready for demolition. And I think this shows that the community's spirit, to save this building was one thing, but it took a lot of will and a lot of Matt to get it done, a lot of work to get it there. And honestly, getting this project from cradle to grave, 3 days after I started here, I think we had the first bid on it, and that was right in the middle of COVID. I know Matt will talk a little bit about how COVID was really challenging, but it also, we didn't execute the project until after COVID, and construction costs continued to go up. So I think that was one of the challenges that they faced. But I think overall, keeping the historic value of this building is really a win-win. I think the interesting piece is the next piece, and I think if you'll scooch the slide for me, Sherry, is the low-income housing tax credit. And I will say this is probably the most misunderstood piece of this project. For our community, there's, everybody wants to save the schoolhouse, and they all have their own idea of what should go in there. And so when we started talking about income-controlled rent, there was a lot of misinformation. There was a lot of confusion about what that meant. And so I put right on here, what those income limits were. And I think it's important this is actually just information off of the leasing site for this project. And I put those numbers on there, Matt. I don't know if those are the final numbers, but that's off of the application.
Yeah, so these numbers you're putting up, these are great. They show you kind of, they're revealing. It kind of shows you these LIHTC properties, low-income housing tax credit projects. You have to qualify your tenants, and everybody's scared of this because they think it's going to create a lot of problems in who you're attracting. But what we recognize is that a lot of the income here is probably a lot of the very people living in your towns today. It's not changing the game. It's really important in these rural markets. Like, we're looking at a project north of Fremont, and we're trying to tell the folks there this has nothing to do with attracting a specific audience only. It really is using the people you already have living there, creating a really nice product that's affordable. You can't afford to build a lot of this and rehab a lot of this in today's market. I mean, it's not feasible. People aren't going to spend $2,000 to $2,500 a month for an apartment in Plattsmouth or in Holdridge. I mean, and you want to be able to have a nice product for these people. So that's a great illustration. This table you have in front of you is probably last year. I think the numbers from last year, they get updated, so those go up about 4 to 5% every year. So I want to say that most of the people we're qualifying now are landing between that 40 to 45,000 in income, maybe 50 to 60 even. If you have a let's say a mom and a dad with 3 kids, every child gets added on, so it goes out to the 5 people. That would be the income that household could earn and qualify for those units. So a lot of the people already living in these towns are making that kind of income. We find that, the hard part is just, getting people comfortable with the program.
It's getting comfortable with the idea of what
Yeah.
low income housing tax credits mean. And then I would say, there was a lot of discussion about well, what if I make more than that? Can I still get into a unit? Because there is a lot of folks that really like the area, the location, and a little bit of when we get into seeing the units, the high quality of the units. So, there are market rate
Yep.
units
Yep.
open, but I think it's important to understand. So Matt and Will and Ryan worked through the low income housing tax credit. I didn't have to do anything, which is the best part. So that is an application that the developer put in with NIFA and worked through that. And I think they actually had an established relationship with NIFA through the process and through some of the other projects that they've done. So not only were they working with the State Historic Preservation Office, but they're also working with NIFA. So there was a lot of collaboration with just those two agencies to get them where they're at. All right, Sherry, let's see what we have for the next slide. Again, I took this off of the website just so that the question of like what the rents are, based on the sizes of the apartments. So they have 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and 3 bedroom. Most of the 3 bedroom are in the new building. Is that right, Matt?
Yeah, the new building is all 3 bedrooms, and then the high school has just the 1s and 2s. So the 3 bedrooms would be all in the new building, and then the 1s and 2s would be in the historic high school. And I want to jump on one more thing you said too. You made another really good point, that when you do these developments, at least for what Ryan and I do for the projects we like to do, we always like to kind of create a little bit of a mix with the light tech, the low income housing units, and market rate. And we usually like to kind of go between 20 to 30% of the units being market rate. So if someone doesn't qualify but falls in love with the building, which has happened here, they still lease it. I just want to throw that out there, that's typically the best approach to go, so that you're getting you're kind of meeting everybody's needs.
All right, we'll go to the next slide. So the LB 840 is really the city's biggest piece of this. And I say that because it's the money that the city controlled. And I don't want to undersell how committed the city was to this project. And so for me, I got here in December of 2020. So they had already decided that they were going to commit money to this project, that they were going to utilize the city's LB 840, that the workforce housing piece in this, where we talk about those incomes, that's really what some of the city workers make. So when I look at what we're paying our staff, we have staff that would qualify to live in this facility. And I think that's an interesting discussion when we talk about low income housing tax credits. Not that the city doesn't pay well, but when you have a family of 3 and you have 1 or 2 family members working, you can see how that number really works. So the city worked with Matt and we met a number of times, and really the resolution was the city's commitment to this project, and then we pledged the funds to that project. I'm not going to bore you with all of the ins and outs of the LB 840, that we have a loan agreement with the project, and there were various milestones. Again, not saying that Matt was crazy, but we didn't give him $1 million on day one.
No.
So in fact, there's still a term for the project, that there's different intervals for those disbursements.
Yeah, I think your disbursements, Emily, as I look at it, are over 7 to 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's over several years, that just to clarify that we didn't get $1 million. it was as much as I would have loved that. We got an annual allocation that I think we took it to First State Bank with Rick Haggy, and then he monetized that with your guys' help, with your tremendous help, actually. So
Yeah. So the city, like I said, this was the city's piece of it, and anyone that wants to dig into that, if I know there's some other chats about some of the other incentives. Not every community has LB 840. For us, the amount that we've pledged towards this project still gives us some bandwidth to do some other LB 840 projects. And what I would tell you on this project from the city side, we didn't think about things like the sewer. So this was an old school campus where you had 3 buildings that were hooked to one sewer, and then the sewer was hooked to the city main. When we identified that, we didn't really identify that at first. So we also had to use some LB 840 money to make a sewer line, public sewer line for this project, because the 3 school buildings, and there's 3 school buildings that are owned by different folks. So Matt has the historic high school building and its apartments, and right next to it is a newer version of a school, and it's actually still a school. And then right next to that is the early childhood learning center, which is owned by the school district. So you have 3 buildings that were all hooked together. So yeah, it had sewer, but it didn't have adequate sewer. And all of those were hooked together in not a public way. So we had to make some public sewer improvements to that, which, on its face, nobody ever really thought about, because, when this was built 100 years ago, it wasn't a problem. And when the area was all owned by one owner, it made sense that they all were hooked together. So those were a few things that, as the project kind of came about, that we were like, oh, okay, there's other things that we didn't think about. We also are going to do some street improvements on 10th Street, which is on one of the entrance roads to the apartment in the future. That's another project that the city is allocated funding to execute. We're just waiting for construction to be complete, and then we'll do that. All right, what's our next slide?
Rick Nelson had a question that I just wanted to address. I think he had a question about why we didn't use PACE and TIF. And do you mind if I answer that, or?
Yeah, go for it. I mean, I think we can both answer it. So go ahead, Matt.
The PACE and the TIF, first of all, PACE is quite expensive to use. And so when we got into it, we started really getting into the details of it and realized it probably didn't make a lot of sense for us to use that particular vehicle, because of the amount it costs to access those dollars. And on the same side of it, TIF, we kind of realized that the same thing was so expensive from an interest rate as well. We have an alternative program called VIP that you can use for historic buildings. And so historic buildings, the state of Nebraska allows you to do kind of like the opposite, if you can imagine, of TIF or even PACE. VIP allows you to keep the assessed value of that particular historic property before renovation at that very low level. So you're assessed a very, very low property tax for the next 8 years, I believe, after CO. And then after that, you have another 4 years that they slowly try to graduate the tax abatement. And what it really does is it minimizes the overall obligation, I call it, or just expense load to a project, which helps us keep our rents as we have them now, keep them low, and make the project sustainable. So I'll leave it with that.
So to answer that question a little bit further, I do think when Matt talks about the expense, really to meet the mission of what PACE is intended to do, it really is to look at energy efficiency and what that looks like. And I think the biggest challenge with this property for PACE was proving the energy efficiency and then having an engineer certify that. So I think when you go from something that has zero energy use, meaning the building was vacant and not used, and then how are, of course they're using energy efficiency principles, but I think it was a little bit harder to get over the hurdle. And there is an expense to get an engineer to go in and look at the energy efficiency components, look at all of the light fixtures, the windows, the HVAC systems, and make a decision. So what I would say is we have PACE in place now. The first slide that I had up there was really just what PACE is. And I don't know that everyone knows what PACE is, or maybe everybody knows what PACE is. But this was actually an effort that the city council said, yeah, we should, if there is an incentive tool that potentially can help any of our projects in the future, we should start the process. So in the future, you can go back and read this slide, and it has all of the legislature's intent with it. The fun thing about PACE is there's no grant, there's no money. It's this idea that the cost to do those energy efficiency items are then assessed to the property, and it sticks with the property until that loan is paid off. So it's an opportunity to maybe get some different investment dollars, as far as if somebody's really wanting to lend on the energy efficiency principles or the energy efficiency side of the project. There's some lenders that are PACE lenders that would then provide opportunity for you to get just that portion of the construction, the energy efficiency portion of the construction funded. So I think that's where there was a lot of moving parts on this project, and I don't know that Matt needed like another application to fill out, but I did send the application to Will, and we talked about it because we wanted to make sure that we had our ducks in a row. So the next slide kind of shows how this was some more steps that the city had to take. So you have to have a public hearing to establish a PACE district and pass resolutions and ordinances to enact that. If anybody ever wants those, I will tell you that there are a number of communities in Nebraska that have PACE programs. Everyone's application looks really similar, and everyone's ordinance looks really similar because the legislature doesn't give us a lot of bandwidth, and it's really kind of a cut and paste kind of deal. So the next slide that I have is actually kind of that. I think this is probably the hardest part of the application here. It's that energy savings component. And this is why you get the funding. So I put it in here because I think that PACE can be also used for energy, not just energy efficiency, but water. If you on this project, it may have worked if we needed to get there. I don't know that Matt needed another loan on the project that was specific for some of those energy and water conservation things that they were already planning to do. So that in a nutshell, Rick, I think that answers your question on PACE. It just seemed at the stage that we were at, like I said, the city council had it in place about the same time. So it was a tool that we had. It's just one that we didn't utilize on this project. I could see it being used on a renovation project, especially with if changing out, putting energy efficiency windows. If you have a building that's already functioning, it's pretty easy to meet the energy efficiency requirements. It's just that you have to have an engineer engaged to do that study for you. I think Rick might have put something in there about USDA in the chat.
Yeah. The REAP program. Yeah.
All right. What's my next slide? So with TIF, I'll just go over TIF really quick. And we talked about TIF and why we didn't use TIF on this project. It is in a slum and blight designated area, and it is one of those projects that I think if they needed it, we would have deployed that for this project. But again, it was one of those things that it didn't work this time, but I could see us utilizing TIF on a similar project in the future. We have a number of areas that are designated slum and blight. And I don't know that the group needs like a TIF tutorial, but it does, Matt talked about the tax assessment. So TIF essentially would freeze the taxes at the level that they're at prior to the improvements being put into it. And then use the difference between the base valuation and the new evaluation to pay off some of the public improvements that were made for the project. So it's another funding tool or mechanism. The city of Plattsmouth has a number of TIF opportunities, and it is TIF is like its own animal and its own thing. So I want to get in, and I think there's just the right amount of time into the actual renovations of the project, because I think the project as it is such an amazing project. I'm excited that I get to be in a town that something like this happened. And I'm really excited that Matt and Will are with me here today to talk about this, because it is a really unique opportunity. This is even an old picture. I don't know what year this picture was taken, but those trees were huge and are actually removed now. So those trees were babies when this was taken, and were full-sized trees. I think one was an elm, huge trees. So I'm going to turn it over to Matt to kind of talk through the building and
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Emily. You're the best. I'm just going to echo some of what Emily said, is that Emily and her team, Irv, the mayor, Paul, I cannot say enough good things about what they are willing to do to get this project done. And it probably would have never gotten done if they weren't willing to partner with us. And so if there's other folks out there listening to this in your community, I mean, for projects to get done like this, these are not easy projects, and you'll see why. And you need those heroes out there like Emily, Irv, Paul, who are just willing to go out on a limb a little bit and take a risk, take a chance on doing something just remarkable. And I'll say the reason why. Well, look at some of these pictures that you see of the history, right? And I am a true believer of we need to do a better job of holding on to our history a little better. These buildings have, hundreds and hundreds of, a school, for example, has hundreds and hundreds of kids have gone through it. Ironically, one of those kids is now the accountant for me. And she was so excited. She was just so excited when she had heard that we were doing this project. Patty Glaze, well, it's Patty Green now, but my team is really assembled of Rich Green, Ryan Durant, Will Major, Fabian Batista, and they're just really great people that helped me get here. But Patty is Rich's wife, and this is a great story because she had a front row seat of kind of seeing the why we do this. The friends she grew up with, and you're restoring the building. It's ironic that a lot of the people that are looking at the building went to high school here. And so when we got the building kind of finished up, the number of people that were coming through from the community was pretty amazing. So let me jump in a little bit now and look at the building. This is kind of right. The picture on the left, as you see it, is kind of when we just got started. And so you can see there was a tunnel that went from the high school over into the other school building. I'm gonna close my door. I don't know if that's echo from me or what. I don't know if I'm creating an echo for someone else, but I'm hoping that helps. But the building to the left is what you'll see that's where we kind of started. And then the building on the right is where we are today, kind of. That's a pretty good shot of kind of at kind of where we are now. And if you can tell, if you look at the historic pictures, it looks pretty close to what was there in the very early days. And just again, here's another example. That tunnel, we had to take the tunnel out from the high school to two buildings, and it was not an easy task. Let me tell you, it was very complicated because there was some structural within that they had to get through. And I'll say this much: the folks at Lund Ross, Alley Pointer Architecture are amazing, because these folks, before we even got started in the building, really walked the halls with me to make sure that we could even get it done. But this particular tunnel, we had to take that out and restore that. And then this is on the east side. You can go ahead. That's okay. This is on the east side, I believe, of the building. As we started getting into that side of the building, you'll see another picture later on, but that whole side collapsed as we got into it. We wondered if it wasn't we were worried about it just because the window lintels were so weak over time that the metal had rusted out. And so one of the subcontractors had gotten in there and maybe got a little overzealous. It really wasn't their fault, honestly. It was just the building had gone through so many years of just deterioration that it just gave way. But I think you'll see the left of what it looked like before, and now this is what it is today. And again, this is again an up before picture, which is hard to believe when I look at that picture. One thing I'll say, the building had really good bones. Okay, so here's where on this particular side, you can see the scaffolding. This is the side that collapsed, and you can see they started up the top and worked their way down. They had to restabilize, and you can see the different colors on that left side there of the brick behind there. They had to rebuild it all up and start all over again, basically, and rebuild it. And so this is at the tail end when they got it all redone, and now they're coming back down again to kind of fill in the windows and the remaining brick. But it was incredible now that's the aftermath of what you see now. And it's almost unrecognizable from where we started. The retaining wall there, I forgot about that. So when Emily was talking about the utilities, when we brought the new utilities in, people a lot smarter than Matt Doherty were like, we can't go too far away on this line to get the utilities up to the other two buildings behind us. So they had to kind of jog in behind there a little bit. And then with that, there's some power. And then you'll see like a sort of, you can't see, but there's like a wall there that behind on the other side of it has got meters. And so because of that and what's behind it, we had to build an enormous retaining wall to hold up a lot of the utilities and so forth that are behind there, that they wanted to make sure it wouldn't move whatsoever. So it like I said, it's just kind of amazing to kind of see what was there before. You couldn't even see any of that because it was covered in vegetation, and part of that wall was coming down and on the lower half there, and then the top half had collapsed on the left side there. So it's really remarkable. The roof, this is a before picture. If you can look real close, you'll see a tree. It was about 10 inches in diameter, was growing on the roof. And so some of the issues we had in the building that was kind of scaring off a lot of other developers is that the roof had really had some big perforations in the skylights, as well as that piece right there was in between the two sections of the building. And what you had really was a tree growing out of that corner, and was causing water to really get into that building, which is what you don't want. And that's where a lot of the problems started. As we get further into the slides here, you'll see. But that roof was in such bad shape with the skylights, it kind of put us in a little bit of a corner. I can't see on this right side because let me see if I can move this. Maybe I can move this over here. I bet I can. Okay, yeah, okay, now I see. So this is what we were looking at before with the skylights, was just kind of a lot of the windows were busted out up there. And again, water was coming through. This is kind of a shot of us going through and starting to work on the parapets. and some of the roof itself on the bottom right, as you can see right there. And so as we continue on here.
So I'm going to interrupt Matt. One of the first things he did, and you guys can see through these pictures, you can go to the next one, Sherry, that's fine. You'll see a lot of graffiti, broken out windows. So this building had suffered vandalisms over the years, lots of vandalism. One of the first things that the project team did was they got the lights on in the building. So the building, as soon as they started construction, had lights on inside the building every single day. And I think that was like the signal to the community, like, hey, this is real, it's happening. So you would drive by at 10 o'clock at night and you would see work lights. But from the time they started construction, the building was never dark again. And I think maybe that was symbolic for like the light of the community is in that building, or I don't know if that was intentional, but I know that was part of that was to prevent continued vandalism. And I think it was a good thing to do.
Absolutely. Thank you, Emily. That's exactly right. There was a lot of vandalism, a lot of artwork. But if you look,
Really,
this is a
art
great
is a stretch, but
yeah, right. So you look at this is why historic projects are sort of, in my opinion, and it's my opinion, are the best projects for transformation, seeing what can be done, right? Because they just don't build stuff like they used to. And so here's a great example. And so when you're doing a historic project such as this, they're going to want you to get as close as you can to what was before. Now look at the picture on the left. There is almost nothing left of that banister, the stairway going up. And there was two of these stairways going 3 or 4 floors. I'm trying to remember, 3 on one side, 4 on another, that you have this beautiful banister going all the way up and down on the east and west side of the building. Now, in the middle slide, you're going to see this is the beginning stages of them trying to refurbish just the wood. I want you to concentrate on that wood. And you see there's probably on each turn, the Finnish carpenters at Lund Ross, he's amazing. The guy's just, I love watching him work. But he probably on each turn has 30 or 40 pieces of small pieces of finished wood that he's sliding in there as he makes the turn. So you just can't use one piece of wood to come around those corners like that. And I'm pointing this out just so you can kind of see the attention to detail that our contractors had. And then you go to the far right, and it gives you a little closer glimpse of what he's doing. He's taking that wood and he's trying to bend it around so it'll blend in when he's finished, because it took him hours. I'm saying like days worth of sanding down to get that to blend in. Would you take it one more slide? Because I think there might be where they show the finished. There's another slide of showing how he's building it. That's really neat. Okay, yeah. So this is another piece where they're showing it a little closer up, like how you can see those curves where he's putting in all those pieces of wood on every single turn. And then and it shows you how he kind of got the base done as well. So there's a piece that goes below it that he had to take out because it was rotted so bad. And then the piece that you see on the left is the pieces that blocks that go above it. And on the far right is the block that he put below so he could stabilize that too. Amazing. And that's the guy right there in the middle. He's amazing. We'll go when we get down further, you'll see the finished product. Right here, this is the picture. I was talking earlier to everyone a little bit about what it looked like, kind of, and it was actually worse than this, because this is after some demo was done even. So because we had to clear out a walkway to get through the main corridor. So this is coming off the main entrance on the west side. So on the west side, you're facing west and you're looking down that hallway, and you can just look and see the devastation from the years of water and just sitting vacant all those years. And of course the artwork too. But go ahead, Emily.
So I think what was there in the kind of the blank areas that's where the lockers were.
Yeah, I was going to go. Yep. Yeah, you're right. Go ahead.
So I think it is interesting, and Matt will get into this, and you'll see in some of the slides how many things they tried to save and reuse in the building. And I say that because like ceiling tiles, at one point, when I walked through the building, they had a room full of ceiling tiles. They were trying to save those for use in the units. Chalkboards, they saved chalkboards and reused them in units. So I think when you look at this corridor, honestly, every square inch was covered with graffiti, and the lockers were gone, right, Matt? The lockers
Yeah.
had been
Yeah.
salvaged before you got the building. Is that
The
right?
well, no, the lockers, most of them, like in this picture, actually, there was lockers in that little opening there. If you see right there, where on the left picture, that opening right there, there was actually in that cubby hole right there was lockers. And then on the left side, you don't see it, but on the left side of the hall, you kind of you're not seeing them yet, but there's lockers that lined up on that left side as well. On the picture to the bottom right, you'll see on the left side that there were lockers going down that hallway as well, but you just don't see it because we haven't filled it in yet. And you can't really see from this vantage point, but there's lockers on both sides of the hall. There they are. Thank you. Okay, that's a better picture of showing where the lockers were. But on the other, I want to point something out though. So this is why it's so important to have people up in there looking at that building, putting eyes on it that are like in my case smarter than me, that kind of understand these old buildings. If you look up on the left picture, you'll see something. You'll see that the ceiling is concrete, and on the left and right side of the walls there, behind those walls is a concrete truss system, steel and concrete. The only reason this building was able to stand all those years with all that water damage and so forth was because of that steel and concrete that kind of saved it over the years. And so that gave us the confidence to feel like we could get this project done in light of all the damage and vandalism and so forth, because we knew it had really, really good bones and was going to be okay. It was a lot of work and we recognized it, but going into it, we recognized that it wasn't a building that we felt like was all was lost, that we could salvage a lot of it. And the construction that was done on it is incredible. And so we try to, because of the historic tax credit process, they kind of want you to try to, they want you to bring it back as much as you can or as close as you can to what it might have looked like before. So you'll see the lockers to the right, but on the left side, we left those open only because we felt like they were gone already and the historics agreed they were gone. Let's just go ahead and keep it open because it really did open the space up in the corridor. But you'll see there's some transoms, some windows above those lockers. Like, for example, they wanted us to keep those, and it really helped, quite honestly. It created a lot of natural light through the middle of that hallway, and it just really opened it up. If you continue to, yeah, there you go. There's where Emily was talking about. You see the tin ceiling. This is where, again, every piece of the building you try to keep as much as you can, if you can save it at least. And so when we went into the demo package to work on demoing out a lot of the building, the ceilings, if you watch these guys taking them down, it was really interesting. They're so careful how they took down those ceilings, and they stored it, like Emily said, into a room. They tried to save as much as they could. They stored it all in a room, and then when we put it all back together, a lot of people didn't even realize those were actually the original tin ceilings that we kept, which is kind of neat. If you can go into some of the units. Oh, there's a picture. Yeah, bottom right. So the bottom right shows you that tin ceiling that we were able to keep. And then the wood floor is the other thing. So the wood floors, they'll want you to keep a lot of them. Some of them we did have to replace, but some of them, those are the original wood floors, if you can believe it. And these units, I have brought people through this building, and they're like, "Wait a second, this is a low income housing tax credit project? What?" And we're like, "Yes, this is the product that you'd have in your city, and this is what you could have." again, I think it gets sometimes the wrong connotation, but um, the the um, the units are really, then when you have to really go in and see them, but they have big high ceilings. If you look on the right side there, we have to keep the chalkboard. So that's a chalkboard, if you can believe it, to the right, that we have to keep that as part of the historics requirement. The windows, of course, you have to keep the windows, are really important. And I think that, to be quite honest, you want to. I mean, it's what a great view you have. And those windows are beautiful, I think. Um,
I
but
think
this,
in this photo, Matt, the one that you could actually look out and you can see in the background on the left side that the new building,
oh yeah,
which
you're right. Yeah, there it is.
we don't
Yeah,
talk about that a lot, but that's where the three
yeah,
bedroom units are. And the other
yeah,
thing that I don't want to forget to talk about, because I know like time is going to run out, but there is a small playground and
yeah,
there is some green space in between.
yep,
And I think if there is a question, how did you make parking work here? So this is a developed neighborhood. There are houses on both sides of the street. There's two school buildings, and two apartment buildings. They actually the parking calculator for this district, a historic district, is that they have to have half of their parking has to be in a parking lot and the rest can be on street. So there are 4 streets around this area that have on street parking, but they do have adequate parking and accessible parking within their parking lot. So I think that
yeah.
there aren't garages, but there is parking available, and then a block away there's a public parking lot as well. So I, when I look at going from nothing to having 2 apartments, we do have a lot more activity up here, which is a good thing. But we don't talk about that other brand new building, and honestly, it blends in. It fits the skyline, and it matches the architecture, and the brick matches, so it just looks like it looks like it's been there the whole time, or that it was meant to be there.
I agree with you. Thank you for bringing that up. I forgot about that. And I'm very picky about how I want my projects to kind of be presented, of course, at the end of the day, 10, 15 years from now. I want to know that you look at it today and 10, 15 years from now, it's going to look great. This is a great shot. So now you see the finished product. I am so proud of the folks at Lund Ross and Will, do you remember the gentleman's name? It's not Seth. I can't think of his name, the older gentleman. He's just an amazing guy. But Larry Wasco it was, and he's from Plasmith, but the guy that worked on this, I can't think of his name. He's an amazing, he's been on other projects for me. I should know his name. I'm terrible with names, so forgive me. I'm an idiot. But this man, look at that banister, what he was able to do. I sit and stare at that thing like, man, that's just incredible what they were able to get done. It's really pretty. And overall, I would say that the little things like the skylight you see above in that last picture, you see how they refinished those skylights. I mean, they're just gorgeous. And I think they add so much character to the overall building. I can't tell you the number of people that sit and stare and like they can't believe that this is a light tech product. Here's the auditorium. And I don't know if we have a finished picture of that auditorium, what it is. Yeah, there's where they're working on. That was a lot of work. I will tell you, the amount of work that they had to put through that because of the skylights and the mechanicals that we had to fish through a lot of that ceiling. But there it is. There's the finished product. Isn't that amazing, man? And it looks pretty close if you look at the other picture on the top right of what it was before. So you see that, you're like, oh my gosh, that's that's pretty close to what they had before years ago. And so we put a couple baths. So we got bathrooms in there, and we have a couple units that feed in on the left and the right on the east and west side of that room. I don't remember how big the room is. Emily, how big do you think that is? The auditorium.
I don't remember, but this is where we had the ribbon cutting, and I will say
Oh, yeah.
this is part of the project that I think has generated the most like people want to use this space. Like
Yeah.
it's in the middle of an apartment complex, and people are like, "Oh, hey, can we get access to them?" Like, yeah, we'll work on that. So, but that it is not open to the public at this point. It's a community room for the development for the apartment. and it really is a beautiful space. You know, we had tables and chairs, and there was a taco bar, which was was amazing.
It was a big hit. It was a big hit.
It did. So I do want you to talk a little bit about the basketball court.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. I think I was telling Emily, you and Lori, the ladies before that, when I first was in the building with Larry Lundquist and Irv, we were going in kind of looking at some of the building, and I'd been in there a couple of times, but this last time we were kind of walking through, and I remember someone else that was with us, and I said, hey, talk about there being a pool, and they're all looking at me like I was confused. And I was like, what? And they're like, there's not a pool. They're like, what is this? They're like, this is the old gym. I'm like, what? And what you're looking at, the picture on the left, they already gotten some of the debris out of this room, but that debris, see where the blue line is? The debris was up to where that blue line is. So it was about 8 to 10 feet up, and there was 3 feet of water. So I thought it was a swimming pool that just had stuff floating in it. I had no idea that the ceiling caved in and all the floor, the gym floor, everything had just kind of collapsed. And so this is sort of the reconditioning, the refurbishing of just the gym. And one of the things I want you to look at the bottom right, one of the things we didn't know going in is that the gym had to have we had to build new foundations throughout the bottom there. You see those holes that they're digging? On the right side, they had to pour all new foundations to go down a little deeper to re-stabilize those walls. And as you go on, you'll see why, because we try to use as much of that room as we possibly could. The big hole there on the top right is where the elevator, that's the elevator pit that's going in. And then you see these other holes right here. This is where they're building pillars and foundations for, they're going to have we're building a whole new floor in above where you're at. So the gym was going to be broken into 2 floors where we were going to create more units, just because you're talking about 25-foot ceilings, maybe, or 30 feet, 25 to 30. I don't remember, but something like that. And so now, as you look up there, there's that concrete. You can kind of see the concrete that I was talking about going down the middle. But this is one of the units on the right from the new concrete floor that we had to pour, and the whole new floor we built. So this is on that above that floor. There it is. So now you can kind of see what we built. You can't even recognize it. On the right side there, you can see where we're building the new floor, where we're going to pour concrete over top of that, and we're building a whole new floor above, so that you have units that are sitting above that. And then we kept part of the gym floor and the gym so the historics were comfortable. In fact, Emily, I don't know if you knew this, but we caught some kids in there playing basketball. We had to kind of shut it down. We're like, guys, we're not expecting anybody to play hoops on this. So we had to kind of shut it down a little bit. So, and there's the wood floors. Pretty amazing how they were able to somehow restore. And some of those wood floors, they took old wood from other units and brought them in and consolidated the wood into some of the other units so that we can make a full floor worth of historical wood floors. And this is where you see I want you to look at this picture on the right. So, okay, the left side shows you that floor is caving in. On the left side, the floor is coming down. So what they did is they cut out the concrete. And then what they did next is they came in and as you can see on the left side, they started putting new rafters in. And then as we continued to go through, they either sistered them or they just took out the old rafter and put a whole new one in so that we could restabilize that floor. In fact, if I'm corrected, they actually had to jack up the floor. They had to go below and jack up from the very base where the gym is and start up from there and go up. So a lot of that wood, look how badly it was rotted. It's just crazy. And there's another shot where you see where it's caving in. You can't really see it all, but there's a hole that was coming through. They had to come through and restabilize that whole side again, where it's coming down. Here's where I'll talk about the concrete steel. And you can see how that just held everything together. And and the bottom right is that Larry Wasco is a guy in the middle, but those are the Lund Ross guys that did a lot of the work. They look like trouble, don't they?
And we're really lucky because Larry is local and he took a ton of pride in this project. And I think that is reflected in the craftsmanship, and really how he took care of the project. Being there and being part of the community was really important to him.
Great point, Emily. Great point. He did. He really, I've worked with Larry a little bit before, and I'll say this, that he's every job he kind of treats the same, but I know he had a little extra. I agree with you. He had a little extra oomph on this one just because it was his backyard and he really wanted something special here. And just like that doorway you saw, just the little things. That's the boiler room. Okay, that's an entryway that people look at that and they're like, where am I? They can't believe how it just, the transformation on what they were able to rebuild. And those windows, a lot of the framing and the wood in some of these windows, they were able to keep it, restore it, and just repaint it, which is amazing. Just absolutely amazing. That's the boiler room, I believe. Yeah, this is one of my favorite units. So this particular unit, it's just such a neat unit. They ended up coming in, and if you notice, they went down and they tore out some of the floors to get a little deeper. You can see on the right picture, you can see where the brick changes different colors. They dug it out and then they re-poured some of it so that we could get the windows in and some other things but the unit just turned out amazing. Usually when we have a boiler room, we just board it up and just kind of enclose it, but they were able to get that boiler out of there and really restore that unit for an apartment.
There's a really active chat. Do you want to roll through those, Lori? Or do you want me to roll through them?
Yes. No, that's fine. We just got one question asking how many total units are in the historic school portion.
25.
Okay.
12
And a
1
total-
bedrooms, 13 2 bedrooms.
Okay, and a total of 41 between the other building and this one, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so
16 3 bedrooms
okay.
in the new
Yeah,
construction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the new building had 3 bedrooms, and I want to touch on that a little bit too. We were talking about parking real quick. The parking probably was a concern for everybody because you got 3 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms, and you're worried about how many parking spots are we going to take up. But let me just say something to everybody listening that might have a project sitting out there that you're thinking about doing. I always say this, and I heard it from someone a lot smarter than Matt Doherty once, that said, if you build it and you have a parking problem, those are the kind of problems you want because you're doing everything. You're creating activity and a buzz in the town, and you're getting people to live in your town. So the 3 bedrooms turned out wonderful. I don't know if we have much of a parking problem, Emily. I haven't heard. I don't think it's as bad as maybe people thought initially, but it's a lot of families, and I'm really excited about that because there's a lot of families living there. It's a mixed bag, actually. I mean, we have a lot of folks that went to high school and the old historic high school living there, which is amazing. So anyway,
So there was a question on the financing package because,
Sure.
and I know Will's probably the man with the answers. I didn't tell them how we got to 14 million, and I don't even know if that's the final construction cost or if you want to get
16.
into the financing a little.
Thanks, Will. It's 16. Yeah, 16.
It was 16,276,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you see the question there, Will, or do
I
you
can
want me to
I
read
can
it for
kind of
you?
go through it, Will, if you let me. I kind of know the numbers a little bit. Out of the 16 million, about 3.5 million we got in historic tax credits. About another, I'll call it 7 to 7.5 million we got in LIHTC credits. We got not quite, but probably about $800,000 net. I believe that's what we netted out on the LB 840, I believe. And the remaining we're going to get in debt. So very little
Okay.
debt. So I think our debt's going to be right about 3.5 million, 3.3 million to 3.3. I think that's pretty close, but
3.3 is what we heard today.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I also think it's important to know that Ryan and Matt and Will did a pro forma for this, and very, very, very transparent on not making any money. So we knew exactly what they were planning for construction. Of course, construction costs went up right in the middle of this. But yes, very transparent on all of the sources, all the funding streams. If you ask the question, Emily, would you want to do this again? I would say only if the, and I say that because I think Matt maybe got a few gray hairs, and Ryan sometimes
Yeah.
he's in Florida, he's on vacation.
He's
So
on vacation for a reason.
he's on vacation for a reason. There was just, we all had to agree, like each of the lenders and each of the funding agencies had to approve of the other agency's documents. So like the city has a loan document that had to be approved by the historic tax credit folks. So we all had to be committed to this project. And I don't know that it's a faint of heart effort, but you have I guess you see the product of it, and it is an amazing product. Very, very proud of the team and the city's piece of it. It is what we all wanted, but you do have to have people committed to not being the only funder in a project and understand upfront that there's a lot of moving parts and everything has to be transparent. City government, we're okay with that because we're used to it, but I think all of the other funders had to be kind of aware that everyone's looking at the numbers.
Yeah, they are.
Okay.
And I want to jump in too, as I say that, I mean, we're not a nonprofit, so we're looking at making income from this. But you can't look at projects like this and think you're going to get instant. It's a long game, and we're hoping over the next 5 to 7 to 10 years that it'll be a very profitable project. So I mean, we want to make a profit. There's not a lot yet, and I'm hoping there will be some. So, but. And with that being said, I would also say that if you ask me to do the project over, boy, I don't know. It's one of those where it was really hard, but then when you get to the end, you see how amazing it looks and all the hard work. It's hard to say no to that. I mean, it's very rewarding for all of us on the team here. Everyone on the team was just very happy, to just honored to be able to say that, this is something we got done. And I would just probably, end with this thought that, one of the big things for us that we struggle to find, it's interesting. We're constantly looking for opportunities to do the same thing in other communities. It's just hard to find them. And we want to do more, but there's just not a lot left out there. And the big thing is that I feel I've kind of a passion for this because I love old buildings and I love kind of saving them, but I also like being able to help people. And I love seeing the families and just some of the people moving into these buildings that they're getting a wonderful, wonderful product. They're getting a great product for a very reasonable price. I think there's some apartments, Emily, in Plattsmouth that are being built. Great product, amazing product. And I know Jesse, he's a wonderful builder. He's one of the better ones out there. But he's going to have to charge more rent because he just has to, because he doesn't have the tax credits behind him. And so those rents are going to be significantly more than mine. And they should be, because it's what he's tailoring it around. But I love the idea of being able to serve to an audience out there that could use this.
And they're full, right? You're pretty much full.
We're full.
Yeah.
We have, I would think that probably if you ask me that question next month, we'll have anywhere from a dozen to maybe 15 that are going to be on a waiting list to be in those units. And maybe even more. We're trying to help I'm trying to help Jesse on his project to say, hey, if we can't qualify, let's make sure we can get him over to him to help him out because everybody wins, right? So we want to make sure everybody can find a place to go. But so if anybody out there sees a building or something out there, they think, hey, this might be something that could work. Please let us know. We would love to help and serve in any way we can. There's just a lot of people right now that are being left behind. And I hear it all the time that people are saying they're driving an hour to go to work. I think it was maybe a town called Schneider, Nebraska, where we were hearing people saying that they drove hours or, back and forth to work just because there was no housing that was even affordable or even available that they could get into. And so we just feel very strong about and passionate about serving the communities in this state if there's other opportunities like this.
Thank you, Matt. We do have your contact information as well as Will and Emily's on the screen. So it's encouraging to see that you're working in smaller communities. I think those are oftentimes where these buildings are left behind and left to decay and deteriorate because Plattsmouth, Emily, what is 5,800? Under 6,000? What is
We're just
your
we're
population?
shy of 7,000.
Oh, 7,000. Okay. My research was antiquated, evidently. So, but that speaks volumes that this can be done in a more rural community, even though you're in the eastern part of the state, that it is feasible for smaller communities. So thank you. But thank you to Emily and Matt and Will. Just before we conclude, I do want to remind you a couple things. Today's webinar will be posted on our website, HomeNE.us. And feel free to check that out, rewatch it. That is often what we see, people going back and reviewing and rewatching webinars to gain information. So I appreciate that very much. It is searchable, and I used it myself this week to help an individual find some past webinars that they were looking for. So it is very user friendly. So we use a lot of hashtags, and we'll be putting this one up with hashtags for your searchability in the coming days and weeks. So also we are announcing today that we have determined our annual spring gathering will be Thursday, June 6th. And we will be convening in central Nebraska. We'll be giving you more details in the coming weeks, but convenient no matter what corner of the state you live in. Coming to central Nebraska is easily doable for all of you. So if that date works for you, and I hope it will, circle it on your calendar and be watching for future information. So it's a day-long event, and we'll be, of course, talking all about housing. So with that I also want to mention to you our next webinar. Abe, are you with us today? Would you like to give us a little bit of a tease?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah, so my name is Abram Luters. I'm with Omaha by Design. We're a nonprofit in Omaha, Nebraska, and we're a nonprofit that's really focused on advocating for livability in Omaha, which really includes housing. And what we're going to be talking about next time is a program that we've started called Affordable by Design, where we've been really investing in free design resources to really assist home builders, including kind of nonprofit developers and emerging developers. The first round of this was a set of free conceptual designs for single family homes. A nonprofit here in Omaha called 75 North has actually completed the first set of 6 homes based on those designs. We're working right now on creating some missing middle designs. And we're also working on hopefully taking some of those designs and making them into pre-approved plans. That's something we're really interested in exploring. So there's going to be a lot of fun stuff to dig into. Just as an aside, those first designs we worked on were actually worked on with Allie Pointer Makedo. So I guess they get around quite a bit. Yeah, I don't think we can top this seminar. I thought that project was just incredible, and I need to get out to Plattsmouth. But it'll be a good discussion.
Yeah. So I hear that technology has overtaken my camera and that you maybe can't see me, but we are looking forward to hearing from Scott and Abram next month as they join us on Thursday, April 18th, to talk about what they are doing in Omaha with urban lots and affordability. And so I hope you will all join us for that. So Emily and Matt and Will, thank you so much for joining us, and for everybody else who has also joined us. I have greatly appreciated your presentation today. So anything else anyone has to say before we conclude? Well, if not, thank you all and have a great rest of your Thursday. We look forward to seeing you next month.
You-